We have a quorum, is the question.
Yes, we
You
do.
have you and David, Cindy, and Paul.
Paul's on too.
Yes.
Well, you can play that game of the dodgem cars, you can run around these.
All right, can, by chance, can you throw up the panel view so we can see?
You know, I was trying to do that, but it's not letting me. Let me see.
While we're trying to work the video on our end, Cindy, Paul, you're both here, right?
Good morning, Steve.
Good morning. And Cindy, you too?
David as well.
All right,
Hello.
so are we ready to open? We're recording? Okay. Let's get this started with opening the meeting. This is the December 11, 2024 regularly scheduled meeting for the Cohasset Affordable Housing Trust. We do have a quorum, so we're going to go by roll. Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson present.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, present.
David Pfeiffer.
David Piper, present.
All right, and we've got Rob Henry.
Present.
Yep, Steve Gomer, present. All right, with that, we can get rolling. Now I'm going to ask you the really tough stuff because I came so well prepared, I have nothing. Can you share screen and just put the agenda up?
Yep.
Thanks. Sorry, guys. By the way, I didn't get an email, copy of an email from contractor.
I don't think he did it yet.
Okay,
No, I didn't get it.
all right,
I gave him your address, so he has the information.
okay. Do we have any public comment?
You actually do.
Okay,
So it's the downstairs owners to 43 Elm literally emailed me this morning, a very lengthy email. So I'm going to screen share that.
are they also on for for this meeting?
They are not present. no,
Okay, so this is public comment from
Via a letter,
via,
essentially.
okay. Is everybody hearing what Cassandra's saying?
Yes.
All right, this is, so I'm reading this at the first time, at the same moment that you are.
So it's a very lengthy email. To summarize it, they have some concerns about the eventual ownership of the second unit. And some maintenance concerns of the property in general.
Why are they choosing today to send it?
I do not know. This is the first that I've heard from them in quite some time.
Do you want us to take time to read it?
You can take time to read it, or I can distribute this later.
I think it's worth it to distribute it because it's
very
it looks
involved.
like there's a fair amount to absorb here.
And she spent the time to do it, so. I think-
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. But that is the summary of her concerns.
And just by the way, as a piece of information, I hate to say years ago, because this has been going on. I met with Diane to kind of tell her what we were doing, because she had no relationship with the previous owner there, because the owner, as you all know, can everybody hear me?
Mhm.
The previous owner ran a doggy daycare up there. And she was not exactly a nice person to Diane below, so she, or whatever, for those reasons, never reported this situation to the Board of Health. So in light of that, I talked to her, and she was concerned about some of the maintenance things and so forth, and she was afraid to say anything because she was completely intimidated by this previous owner. The other thing is that she has two daughters who don't live with her anymore. They're adults. And at the time, they were very interested in getting the unit for themselves, under the affordable situation. Now, I have not heard from her since then, and as I say, this has to be 2.5, 3 years ago. And so again, I'm kind of reading this thing, so I don't, is it a constructive letter, Cassandra? I mean, what's your problem with what's going on upstairs? I understand there's a problem about, say, maybe some maintenance, but what What did she say?
I don't think that, based on my understanding from her letter, it doesn't appear that she has concerns with the trust owning the unit and the work that is being done. She just has concerns about the ongoing maintenance of the building, some issues that were that came up with prior owners. Towards the end of the letter, she does say that she would like to have it sold to her daughter if she were
Yeah.
to qualify, which obviously I will reply and tell her that it is state mandated that it has to go through the lottery, and inform her of that.
Yeah, so it's more of a pitch to get her, get it for her daughter then, right?
I will say this, look at reading this, and I just did an opinion at the moment. Much of what is being described in here, and potentially including the plumbing repairs, need to be reviewed for responsibility. And by that, I simply mean that there is, the things that are on the exterior of the building belong to the HOA. Now, mind you, the HOA is made up of 2 units, and the HOA right now is that's it's fairly cloudy to us as to whether or not it's actually active. Habitat for Humanity acts as property manager, but they are not the HOA and really have no interest in
No.
this. The town of Cohasset actually has ownership of a small chunk of square footage in here, which just makes it that much muddier. But much of what
Excuse me, Steve, let me just point out, because you mentioned plumbing. And we
Well-
have fixed plumbing, but there was a leak into her unit.
Yeah,
Oh, there.
but the point here is that the plumbing itself might have come from unit 2. It might have come from common area plumbing. No one really knows. And I bring this up simply because I'm dealing with this in a condo unit I own.
Mm.
Right, and the unit owner has every reason to, hopefully find that it's common area, meaning outside the walls, common area plumbing. That way, the unit owner goes, it's the HOA's problem.
Yeah,
Now, the HOA in this case is 2 units, and therefore you'd have to look and say, well, is there a capital reserve? Can anyone take this on? Same thing with the gutters. There's questions about maintenance. I guess my point in all of this is I encourage each of you to read it, think it through, but recognize in addition to all of that, that we're looking to sell the unit, but we should probably be thinking along with selling it, passing along a structure that encourages a new owner to engage with their neighbors, because that is the nature of an HOA, and be thinking about how to take care of the building, the envelope. That includes, from our perspective, clearing up some ownership questions about, what portion of the town owns, can we get it back? If so, where should it go? Should it go to the unit owners? Should unit owner, or should it go to the HOA as common space, which would be my thought on it. But in any case,
and I know one of our concerns, which we talked about yesterday, was the fire escape, which comes from the 2nd floor.
right, which is an HOA item because it's on the
Exactly.
outside the building. Now, having
Exactly.
said that, do we ever resolve who actually does, or if there is an inspection on a fire escape?
There is an inspection. It's supposed to be done every 5 years.
By whom?
A registered engineer that is capable of doing those inspections.
So it's a responsibility for the HOA to inspect?
Yes. Which I have reached out to Noreen from
Okay.
South Shore Habitat. I'm going to follow up again with her today.
Okay, yeah, that'd be helpful. I don't know if we should or can comment any more on this, having only read this
Yeah.
briefly and in front of us, but it's worth taking into account. Excuse me. And being,
If I can make a suggestion, since I have had contact with, instead of going back and forth with emails and all that, maybe I should just have a conversation with her again to show a little more interest, because it seemed to have worked when I talked to her the first time, allaying some of the fears that she had, and because of the bad experience with the 2nd floor owner. And it's just as a first step, I won't make any commitments. I'll just kind of be a sounding board for her to make sure we really understand what our concerns are, because this is sort of general.
Yeah,
And we're bringing up a lot of things. She has no idea what we've done upstairs. And the only reason I wouldn't do that either, because she's not gonna have, we don't want anybody to think that she has an inside
right.
deal on getting this, but I don't see any kind of conversation. It's not, recorded and all. I mean, it just, the last sentence, the last paragraph, I think, is positive. And I think she's really making a play to, and I wouldn't blame her to get it for her daughter.
Yeah, this is.
I think Paul would like to say something. know you can't
Yeah,
see.
Paul, give me just a second.
Hey, Ken,
Yeah, the one item that I would highlight to all of you is in this. The second, third sentence, last paragraph, which refers to, again, the opportunity to buy the unit.
Mm.
Right? And we can't thumb the scale. I'm sorry. I think if again, I would, at that point, I'd promote the conversation to your elected state representatives, because that's out of,
Yeah.
that's out of our hands. And I think it's fascinating that, after noting so many issues with the upstairs unit and mold and the trouble it's caused, et cetera, the first thing I'd like to do is buy it.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Well, I met with her and the daughter. There were two daughters, but the one that wanted, and maybe the other one might live with her. So I have pretty good feel for what they're looking for. And they just have either, I don't know what made them do it now, but at least I could go through what we've done upstairs and, give them a comfort level that way, but, and then
I would hold off on making any personal contact until each of us have had a chance to read through this and offer our comments back through Cassandra. Okay,
but I don't think we should let this thing go as far as she wrote that we need to respond to her though.
This is a public comment. We can respond to it. We can opt to respond to it, but we don't need to respond to it. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that we go put our heads in the sand. I'm rather recommending that each of us read it, ask questions back through Cassandra so that we can all absorb what individuals' thoughts are. And then think about the potential of making a personal outreach. We're talking about doing this over the course of a few days.
Yeah, sure.
Months.
No, I'm just saying, no, not to wait till next month to get everybody's feedback.
I don't think that's our intention. But hang on for just a second. Paul, you were waiting to ask or waiting to make a comment. So turn it back to you.
Forgive me for being cynical just in reading through it. And Steve, I'm going to piggyback a little on what you said. Just in reading through the email, I mean, there's a litany of complaints. You got a 34-year-old boiler who's going to replace that. They don't know what has been done upstairs. And yet the daughters want to buy it. And I know they have to go through the process, but I think there's a feel they're reaching out to see if they can. And I'll say, again, forgive me for being cynical. That's a hell of a nice investment if they got their hands on it.
It's that.
I'm gonna kind of leave it at that. I understand now from hearing that they had trouble with the dog person. But again, my antenna kind of goes up, so you'll all have to forgive me on things like this.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Read, if you would, again, Paul, I'll reiterate, read through the note that Cassandra will send it out after the meeting, and make your comments as well. So back through Cassandra, because the rest of the trust is going to read your comments, the same with Cindy's, et cetera. And that way we can formulate a conversation, a more formal response. And based upon the comments and questions, it may be worthwhile to make a personal contact. And Rob makes a very good point. He's had personal contact with these folks, and there also could be legitimate questions. Ultimately, as a property, I think the the vexing thing that continues to arise surrounds the HOA. Right, the homeowners association. And ultimately, I don't believe that there is any reserve there. And as a result of that, anyone buying this unit and facing and I'm assuming it's a common boiler, is it?
I don't know anymore. I actually forget.
Well, we have to check that out, but anyone facing the potential for replacing a primary system like heat is going to agonize over that replacement cost. If it's a common boiler, then it's a common expense. And, you think about it, that's, let's just say for the sake of argument, it's 18 grand to replace it. That's 9,000 per family. That's probably a burden for someone who's just bought an affordable unit. So I think there's some things to think about in that as well.
I would agree with that.
So, I just picked that one out, Paul. There are other items, you certainly would want as a HOA, you want to make sure that you're moving water away from a property. And so guttering makes sense. And I would imagine looking at that property that the guttering hasn't been inspected, certainly not replaced in 30 years. And again, they make good and valid points, but they're not necessarily valid points for the trust as the seller of a property as much as they are for the HOA. We're right now members of the HOA because we own it. But
Well, got to forgive the cynic in me. When I read through and it says I tend to start, then I hope for the best. I start at the bottom and I work my way up.
Good. All right, fair enough. So get your comments back on it if you don't mind. Yeah. Cindy, do you have anything to say on this
Quick
topic?
question in terms of what you're discussing about the HOA. When the goes to the lottery auction and it looks through what people are required to show their financial stability, et cetera, to enter the lottery, is there mention of the need or whatever the HOA annual requirements are? What's the fees that are expected to be paid into the HOA? Is that included in the lottery process beyond just the ability to manage the mortgage and purchase of the property?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the entire carry cost of the property. Mortgage, HOA, insurance.
Taxes.
So is there a set HOA fee
There
as
is.
of now?
We're paying it currently. It's actually very modest. I can't remember the exact number. Can you?
So when Karis did the calculations with South Shore Habitat, I think they accommodated for the potential for the HOA fees to go up in the new year. So they put it at $390 a month.
Yeah, so almost $400 a month.
As you said, there's no capital that's accrued into the HOA that could cover something like a boiler replacement.
I think it's worth it. We will need to review the HOA financials, which is really a call to Habitat, probably for next meeting. But I don't believe that there's any kind of any material capital reserve within the HOA. Okay.
Yep, I could see that, as you said, that could be, I could just see that as a potential problem issue if a new owner is coming in and then suddenly has that additional fee or capital cost.
It's actually the biggest stumbling block that condominium structures. It doesn't matter whether it's a common building or townhouses. It's one of the things that condominium associations face most regularly is the capital, building a capital reserve and maintaining it. It's strange how things break and cost a lot of money. And having gone through this in the place that I currently live, and at one point I owned a property in another development here in the town, and I just don't want to name the property. But the intensity of maintenance was for that particular one was primarily lawns and roads, or lawns and plowing. And so we figured we had it all under control until the roofs started to go. Oh yeah, maybe we don't have it under control. So there are a number of things I think we should examine as conscientious sellers, but recognize that we are looking to sell. We're not looking to create the life support for the association. Ultimately, that falls upon the homeowners themselves. So, all right. Are we good leaving this one behind?
Does anybody want
Public comment?
does anybody want an update on the,
Well, hold on. Wait, well, let's go back to the agenda because that is on the agenda.
That's fine. My plan is to just reply to her to say that it has been distributed to you guys. That way she's aware that you'll be looking at it. And that you'll be formulating a response.
that's good, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Fine, that's great. Okay. Thank you. Back to the agenda for just a minute. All right. 42 Elm Street, Unit 2 update. We're gonna go through these 3 items. And by the way, if it seems like I'm pushing this morning, I've got to make the 10 o'clock vote. So there you go. That's 35 minutes from now that I gotta leave. So public comment for, we've gone through 43 Elm Street, Unit 2, that, the LIP application update is yours, Cassandra, so take it away.
So the LIP application was submitted to EOHLC for review. They came back and said they needed some more information. I've reached out to Karis, who's going to be working on getting that information ready to then submit to them.
Okay,
They were very responsive, so I imagine that once they have all the information that they're looking for, they won't take too long. Speculating there a little bit, but since they responded to me within 48 hours, that's a good sign, I would think.
this doesn't need to be, or does this need to be executed before sale? Or is there any relationship between the two?
Yes, there is a relationship between the two because part of the LIP application includes the marketing materials.
Got it. Okay.
So the intent was that we apply for the application while the renovations are still ongoing. That way, presumably, once the renovations are done, we would have an answer and it would go together smoothly.
How, if you, I mean, what's the nature of the questions that were pushed back?
They were looking for the regulatory agreement that Karis is going to be working on. She didn't include that in the packet materials that I was to submit. And then they were looking for basically just an agreement that the trust originally bought the property, which I was able to provide for them.
Okay, would you please just send a note to Karis and copy the trustees with respect, and just asking her for her time frame for completing her portion of this, the regulatory agreement. And copying the trustees is just to keep us aware, so that she responds. When she responds, everybody else will see it.
Sure, not a
Okay.
problem.
Great, thank you. Now, the next item on here is the project update, which Rob can take away. Rob?
Yes, we went and reviewed, in essence, the whole job has been completed with the exception of the counter in the kitchen for the kitchen cabinets. And just as a editorial comment, that he's done a terrific job. The floors look good. Everything looks very, very good there. All the things on the list, and I won't go through them, are completed. Unfortunately, there was a hiccup in terms of getting the approval to Lowe's to get the counter ordered, and it was not the contractor's fault. So we've got that under control. So when he gets that in 2 weeks, it will take a few days to get it completed. And I mean, the good news about this guy, he's on top of the whole thing. He has been the whole time. He's been frustrated too because of some of the bad work that was done before him, and he's had to fix it, but he's done all that. So place is good. The electrical's been done, the plumbing, all that is completed. So once we have the counter installed and the backsplash, it'll be ready to go.
Well, we talked about having a cleaning service come in and handling the cleaning in the windows. There's a fair amount of dust from construction.
Yeah.
But I had the opportunity yesterday to walked through with Rob and the contractor. And I have to say that it looks, if I were looking around right now, I'd be pretty surprised I could find a, you know, roughly what, 1,400
Yeah.
square foot unit for.
And I had to stop Steve from buying it. He has to go through the lottery.
I could have, I might have qualified.
Yeah, that's right.
But in any case, the renovation has taken a long time. The work as final as it gets prior to putting the countertops in is, I mean, it's pretty attractive. So,
And there is carpeting in some of the rooms, the bedrooms and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's a very attractive unit, especially when you've seen it, when you remember what it looked like when.
yeah, no, it's great. They've done a very good job bringing the unit back to life. So, questions? Answer, okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the third bullet point under 43 Elm, which is lack of memory. Actually, I should look at this. I didn't have it actually on my phone.
I believe the marketing plan was or the marketing update was the third bullet point. That kind of ties into the LIP application. So the marketing plan and draft marketing materials are done by the contracted Realtor to do the lottery process. Once we receive the LAU approval, that lottery process can begin.
Okay. Is there any action item for us to take at the moment?
I don't think so.
Perfect. I like that answer. All right. All right, next item.
The next item is the 808 Jerusalem outstanding needs for in-kind donations and direct. Oh, it's on
Uh,
there you go.
That's like to do.
I spoke with Tamar Scheiss. She said that they still need about $75,000 that they're looking to fundraise for direct funding. I inquired about in-kind donations and did not hear back on that aspect.
Okay, I remember in-kind donations, there was a request for 2 toilets, things like that. And if there's anything further on that, let us know. I asked about this, guys, because they're moving right along. I think the completion is still hoped for this summer, I think, something like that. And the trust have put in the land and $80,000 to date, which is not insignificant. I would argue that's probably over half the cost. But I'm gonna ask if the trust would consider the possibility of putting together a matching promotion for donation. Right, so by that, I simply look at it and say, we might match dollar for dollar up to a maximum to try and instigate private donations. It's a thought, or
I
if
like
there
that a
are.
lot.
David?
I like that a lot.
Okay, now this is not a proposal, it's not on the agenda. I want you to think about it, okay? But it's something I've been rolling around in my mind because they've been looking for this last $75,000 for a while. And I don't know how their typical fundraising goes, but ultimately they're looking around for individual donations. I think we need to look at the balance in our trust, what we know at what we know our upcoming obligations against it. But if we were to, for instance, look to match dollar for dollar for half of that $75,000 need, we're really, we're talking about laying out another $37,500 potentially. But we're also hopefully expediting 808 to completion. Now, there's no element of this that expedites our objectives any further than they are now. Really, it's spending money. Having said that, Habitat has been a good partner across the board for us. We have, like I said, we've contributed to 808 pretty mightily. But but I'd also point out that they've contributed to 43 Elm very mightily. So it's just something I want you to think about. Really, the objective is helping them to get to their fundraising goal more rapidly. This is a way to do it. It's not the only way to do it, so give it some thought. Okay?
Could I
Great.
ask?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead, Paul.
Did they have a timeline, Steve? What's, what they're looking for? Again, I agree with David. That's not a bad thought because we're in the holiday season. Spirit of giving.
Yeah, the short answer is I don't know what their timeline is for the raise. And they seem to look for project completion and backfill if necessary. So I don't know that it's going to stop construction on the property.
Okay.
They don't have it, but I think we can probably get more clarity from, would it be Tamar that we'd want to talk to on that?
It would be tomorrow. My understanding is that you're right. It would not stop construction of the project. They obviously will just complete the project. That way the new homeowners aren't going to be out of a home. But obviously they don't want to dilly-dally on that fundraising either.
Right, so it's, what I've laid out before you is really nothing more than a thought, an idea, with the objective of expediting the completion of their fundraising. We can argue that that's not our responsibility. I look at it and say, no, it's not. But that doesn't absolve the fact that they're willing to take a substantial monetary risk to complete the property which does benefit the town of Cohasset. So just carry it with you. It'll be an item that we'll bring up on the agenda next meeting, and maybe we can have Tamar come in and talk to us at that point as well.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? Hearing none, we'll move on.
So that brings you to a close for your regular items. The rest are administrative. The first being the review of the 2025 draft schedule.
Let's take a look.
Screen share.
I take the draft schedule continues on, as you can see, on second Wednesday of every month. We were gonna hold it on the first Wednesday, but we figured New Year's Day wasn't gonna work out for everybody, so. Does anyone have comments on this? Disgust, hatred, etc. Okay, super. We'll move ahead with this schedule, hearing no objections, recognizing that it can be revised. So,
Yes.
and in the event that any of us are wondering why we're doing this now, the reason sits right across the table from me. Cassandra would like to know what her life looks like, so. All right. Second administrative item.
Second administrative item is the HOA for 43 Elm Street for November through January.
So roughly $1,000,
It is. I could give you a more exact figure.
390 times 3. No, roughly $1,180.
So the total is $3,514.85, which includes the November, December, and January condo fees and the builder's risk insurance from November through the end of January.
I thought we already signed off on the builder's risk insurance.
You did sign off on it, but this is to pay it.
Ah,
That was to initiate it.
all right. So sound like a big number, right, guys? This is the cost of the delay on the renovation. This is the carry cost. So, and it's worth letting the contractor know that the insurance expires end of January. We're going to get it done.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I know he's-
I'll reiterate that with him.
Okay. Any questions on this, folks? All right, can I have a motion, to approve payment?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Can I have a second? You got two motions.
I'll second Paul.
Okay, all right, motion and a second. Any further comment? All right, let's go around the room. Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, I.
David Pfeiffer,
David Piper, aye.
yeah, Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, I.
and Steve Gomer, aye. Okay, motion's approved. Let's go pay that one.
Okay, next is your minutes approval from October 9th.
All right. I know each of you have read with great interest the minutes from October 9th. So, that one of us who was most fascinated by it can make the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, thank you.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Go around the room one more time. Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, I.
David Pfeiffer.
David Piper, aye.
Thank you, David. Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, I.
and Steve Gomer, aye. Okay.
Next is a $325 invoice from Christine Barraford for creating minutes.
All right, before we go any further, do we have additional invoices we might be able to put together into a single motion? So same payee, for example.
You do not for Christine, but you do have them for your attorney fees.
Okay, so let's go with the call it for what it is, minutes maintenance. Invoice for Cindy Beresford for $315.
Steve, I have
The
a
chair will-
question.
Yes,
Those invoices go back to December of 23 and January and February of 24. I just
Yes,
wondered how they were, why she was only sending them in now, or did we not pay them earlier?
we did not pay them. I confirmed that. She thought that she had sent the invoice and she had not, which resulted in me not paying the invoice. So this is why we're getting it now.
all right.
A question too, how come we don't have November?
I do not why she has, do
This
not
is-
know why she hasn't completed this.
This is up to a contractor. Now, first of all, let's tackle this invoice because it's the subject on the table. I understand your point, Cindy, and I want to go back and revisit the dating on it, so, just give us a second.
Sure.
Does anyone dispute the payment of the invoice? All right. Can the chair will move that we pay the invoice. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, once again, Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, I.
David Pfeiffer,
David Piper, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Rob Henry, I.
Rob Henry, aye. Steve Gomer, aye. All right, so just as a matter of policy. All right, and I'm gonna propose this. It's not a motion to be acted on now. But as a matter of policy, I believe it's within our interest as an organization to limit our liability for invoices to 12 months. All right, in other words, a contractor who gives us an invoice 14 months after service is delivered is at risk, no matter what business you're in, no matter what entity you're in. As a matter of fact, you noticed at town meeting, even though I didn't make this one, it's always on the agenda, payment of invoices from past years, which I have to say proudly is no longer an issue. And I say proudly because I can't tell you how many times I raised a stink about it. Why should we be paying people who are slow getting their invoices? The fact of the matter is we'll pay for the work, but there is a responsibility for the contractor as well to give us a timely invoice. So from that, I just ask you to think about it as a policy. All right? Okay.
But also, I think if a person can't do minutes within a month and not to have November,
It's not, she has been spot on with getting us the minutes recorded. Less so with getting us the billing. All right, and sorry, guys. It's just something to keep in mind. Look, my wife deals with a contractor who she pays regularly by check, and we have checks outstanding to that contractor that are now 11 months old.
Hmm.
And they're not gonna be honored by the bank. So, look, I'm just, like I said, I'm asking you to think about it for a policy. Her
No, it's good.
delivery of services, that's very good.
Okay, so in other words, we do have the November minutes.
No, we typically get them as much as 60 days after the fact. Well, no, Rob, that's not bad. I have to say that, having had my own experience.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people that don't bill properly. I mean, you know, we know contractors, that's not common and that's too bad for them, but you know, when we have, we only meet once a month and then have to go back 2 months ago, remember and approve and read the minutes. I don't think it's too much to ask her to have minutes within 30 days.
Okay, well, we can certainly do that again.
And there's nothing wrong with asking her. I mean, I know we're not trying to annoy her to the point that she doesn't want to do it. That's not my purpose, but I just think that, and most of the time it probably wouldn't matter, but sometimes it might, you know, things that we need to make sure we're handled or whatever, agreed upon or whatever the case with our minutes, it just, I think it should be in a timely manner, meaning 30 days.
Okay. We can certainly communicate that to her. What do we have next?
So next you have a few bills from Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lahane. Totaling 125, 248, 50, and 375.
Okay. I have reviewed them. I personally don't find anything amiss or questionable, so I'll pass it along to the trust. Are there questions on the attorney's invoices? Hearing none. Can I have a motion to approve payment?
So moved.
So moved.
Second from the chair. Let's go around backwards this time. All right, Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
David Pfeiffer,
David Piper, aye.
Paul Grady,
O'Grady, aye.
Cindy Matheson.
Cindy Matheson, I.
All right, Steve Gomer, aye. All right.
And last but not least, you have an invoice from KP Law in the amount of $632.50. This is for work that took place when we were trying to get 25 Heather Drive closed.
KP Law is the town's attorney, correct?
Correct. You had asked
Right.
that they look into it.
And how much is the invoice?
$632.50.
All right, Mr. Selectman, what do you have to say about this?
Gee, point a finger, why don't you see?
Yes, we did ask them to, mostly, I think, if I recall, this was to expedite a process which was slowing down.
Yes.
All right. I have no issues with it. We frankly, we're having a very difficult time. You might all remember, and it actually caused triggered a conversation with our own council with respect to attention to our needs. I tend to look at this invoice as paying an entity that is not normally when we work with. Because we would have paid the same invoice just with a different header on it. Had our council been more attentive at that moment. All right, so that's my view on it. Are there any other comments? Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, can I have a motion to pay this one too?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second,
All right. With that, David Pfeiffer,
David Piper, aye.
okay. Paul Grady,
O'Grady, aye.
Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Matheson, I.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
and Steve Gomer, aye. All right. That's it. Folks, I actually do have one thing that is not on the agenda, but it is it's something I want each of you to know about. At the end of June of this year, all of our terms come up for renewal once again, as you may know. It is my intention to not request a renewal for myself. All right, it's been a long time. I've thought about this. But I will leave the trust at the end of the fiscal year. All right, I decided to talk about it with you all now because this group has been the most high functioning joint effort of any I've ever worked with, and I've had the good fortune of working with two others. One was a select board that I once served on, and another was a 12-year run with the Capital Budget Committee. And as impressive as those groups were for getting stuff done, I don't think I've ever worked with a group that was more focused, more interested, and more functional than this one. I would love to see that carry on, but in the next several years, I will leave this community for good. And I don't believe it's in the community's best interest to have a short timer making longer term contributions to an initiative as important as this one. So with that, be thinking about membership, who you'd like to be working with in the future to continue this, this really very important initiative. And it's one that, frankly, probably has more impact on the quality of life in the community that you live in, more direct impact than almost any other except for DPW. I mean that sincerely. You don't think so? Just wait till the next snowstorm. Anyway, that's it. I wanted you to hear it from me. This is the biggest gathering I could get. So there you have it. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Well,
Okay.
Second.
Thank you.
we don't
All
meet
right.
everybody the happiest of holidays, Merry Christmas and everything else, and be safe and enjoy your family and your loved ones.
Paul, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. I was gonna say to Paul, is he gonna, after this, decorate that tree?
Which one?
The one right behind you?
That's coming up tonight.
Oh, okay.
Wish each and every one of you a very pleasant holiday and a peaceful one at that. We have a motion and a second. Unfortunately, we have to do this roll call because it's hybrid. So Cindy Matheson,
Cindy Mathis and I.
David Pfeiffer,
David Pfeiffer, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Rob Henry,
Rob Henry, aye.
Steve Gomer, aye. All right, folks, we're adjourned. See you next year.
Take care.
Take care.